Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Welcome to Dev with Excel. All right, so welcome to the second exercise on anecdotes. So let's go to where we have the instruction. So it's exercise 1.13. So previously in the previous video we solved exercise 1.12, but in this video we are going to be solving exercise 1.13. And let's see what the instruction says. It says we should expand our application so that we can vote for the displayed anecdotes. So seeing what they have here as part of the instruction, we are expected to do something similar to this where we can vote for a particular anecdote. It says that NB store the votes of each anecdote into an array or object in the component state. Remember that the correct way of updating states stored in complex data structures like objects and arrays is to make a copy of the state. So here we are not going to be using objects, but rather we are going to be using arrays, right? So let me just hide this. All right, we need to define our array now. Let me just take the browser to where it gets rendered. All right, so let's create our array. We can come underneath the random string function to do that. We are going to be using the new keyword to create the array. So let's do something like this: new array. Then inside this array, what do we need to create? We need to create an array having the same length as the length of values we have in the anecdote. So here we have 8 strings in this anecdote array, right? That means we have 8 values, eight elements. Therefore, we are going to be using the length of the anecdote we have. So we simply just come here and say anecdotes dot length. Then we want to fill each of the array with 0, right? So having done this, we assign this value to a variable. Let's call this variable, let's call it maximum, or let's just call it initial vote, right? So this is called initial vote, and we can choose to console log its value. Let's console log its value to see exactly what it returns. So initial vote, let's save this. Then let's come to this browser. And by the way, I am using Microsoft Edge, right? So I'm simply going to go to the developers tool and then check what we have in the array. So here we can see that we have 8 items in the array, right? That's because we have 8 strings in the array and we did anecdote.length. That's why we have 8 items. So each of them is having a value of 0 votes as default, right? A value of 0 votes. Now this is because of what we did here. So we filled each of the values with 0, which we did here, right? So the next thing we want to do, let's comment this console log. The next thing we want to do now is we are going to create a state, right? So we say const. So this state is going to take in the votes and the updated values for the votes. So we call it votes, then set votes, then set votes. All right, so is equal to useState. Now inside this use state, the initial value is going to be the initial vote. And of course, the initial vote is 0 for each of the items or for each of the anecdotes. So we save this. Having saved this, the next thing we need to do is we need to create a function that handles the vote clicks, right? So let's call the function handle, let's call it handle votes. And we are using an arrow function. So inside here, we need to create a copy of the vote. So the vote we are working with is this. right? So we need to create a copy of it. We say const, let's call it new votes is equal to this. So let's call it new votes or new votes, whichever that pleases you. So the next thing we want to do is we want to ensure that when this string or when the anecdote is clicked on, the more it's being clicked on, that's the more votes we assign to it, the more its value increases, right? So how can we do that? We simply say new votes, then square brackets selected. Now don't forget that selected is a state here, which is initially having the value of 0, right? So as more and more times the votes button is clicked, the its value also increases. So we do something like this. This means that it increases by 1, right? So we have to update the value of the new votes. So we say set votes. Inside set votes, what we do is we place in new votes, right? So let's save this and see what we have on the console. Okay, so right now we need to create a button such that when we click on that button, it triggers the event handler, which shall be handle votes, right? So what we are going to do here is we are going to come underneath button. Then underneath this button, what we can do is we create another button and we call it vote. So here for the attributes, we use on click because we want to make sure that at the click of this button, the event handler is triggered. So here we say handle votes. Okay, so let's save this and see. So here we can see that we have votes here. Let's click on votes and see if we've done the right thing. Okay, so vote is not doing anything. It's actually doing something, but we need to see what it is doing here. Let's come here to console log new votes so that we can see what is happening in the background. So let's click on votes. Okay, so we can see that we clicked on, let me just do something like this, or let me just expand this. All right, so we can see that for this first one, we voted for this particular string, which is the anecdote. If it's hot, do it more often. We clicked on it 3 times. That's why we have it here, 3, right? So let's see if that is true. Let's click more. Or let's click on it more. So we come here and then you can see that it's now 4. When we come to the next anecdote, don't forget that this is a random position, right? It might not be the exactly next, which is 1 here. It might fall on any of these index. So when we click on vote, we have this array. Let's expand it. We can see that we have the 7th item clicked once. So that means that this particular string, which is an anecdote, it has 1 vote, and the first one, which is if it's hot, do it more often, has 4 votes. All right, so let's move on with our code implementation. I'm going to close this part for now. All right, so the next thing we want to do is going to our instruction. What do we have? Okay, we have has 7 votes. So we are going to have something like this, has 7 votes. So what do we do? How can we do this? So we are simply going to come here, then underneath this one, we are going to do something like this. We are going to, let's use a p tag. You can choose to use any tag, it is going to work, but just for the sake of how it looks on the browser, we are going to use p tag. So let's write votes here. Let's save it. Here we have votes here. So when I click on votes, it appears nothing happens for now. So beside votes, let's use the curly brace and say votes selected. Let's save this and let's keep on voting. You can see that this vote here keeps increasing, right? So we have to give it a space here. And then also we can come here and then say has this. All right, so we can see that this is now trying to tell us that this particular string, this particular anecdote has 6 votes, right? Let's click on it more. When we go to the next anecdote, let's vote for it. It has 1 vote. So we can just comment to just make things look a bit nice. Let's put this S in brackets. Should in case the vote is 1 or more than 1, right? So here we can say it has 1 vote. All right, so let's go back to confirm if we've been able to implement everything required. Okay, so here we can see that votes here comes before next anecdote. This is not really a problem, but let's just do it exactly how they want it. So since vote comes before next anecdote, we need to push this vote here to this place. So we come here and then just put this one up here. Then let's save. So we can see that we have votes before anecdote and our code still works very, very fine, right? So I think with this, we've come to the end of this exercise 1.13. Let's be very sure again. Okay, yeah, so at this point, I'll say thanks for having me and see you in the next video. Bye.